Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our weekly webinar series that occurs here on our Facebook page every Friday at noon. My name is Brianna. I'm a Sustainable Transportation Vermont intern, and I'm so excited to announce our speaker today, who is Josh Katz. And Josh is a senior environmental studies major at UVM, a former intern of STVT, and a current intern for the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. He's especially passionate about building more sustainable communities through improved alternate modes of transportation. So today, Josh will be talking about his internship experience working in transportation. So I'm going to bring Josh up now. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Bri. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm very much excited to learn about what you've been doing at the CCRPC. But before we start, I just wanted to ask you, to get things rolling, what made you so interested in sustainable transportation?
Yeah, so I've always really loved biking since I was a little kid. I used to go on like bike rides with my parents in New York City, and that was like something I did like all as a little kid. So it was really definitely ingrained in me. And having grown up in New York City, like never really driving, just being like taking the subway to school, biking around to see my friends, walking places. It was really all I knew as a kid. And then I came up to Vermont and I was like, whoa, this is totally different. There's like very little, there's some public transportation, but not the sprawling infrastructure that New York City has. In addition to that, not a lot of bike infrastructure and just not a lot of other ways to get around besides by car. So I saw that, and through me being an environmental studies major, learning about all these climate change issues and all these other issues we have regarding the environment, I just became really passionate about transportation.
That's awesome. So I'm going to pass it on to you now, and maybe you could explain your work at STVT and how that moved into the CCRPC. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool. So I started as an intern for STVT. Jack Hansen came into one of my classes and was just talked to us about this internship, and I decided to do it. And it really has definitely changed my perspective on like climate change issues and how we need to address them, specifically like with changing our transportation system. So one thing that I really focused on during my time at STVT was advocating for a bike lane on Winooski Avenue in Burlington, which is one of the most dangerous corridors in all of Burlington. It's like 17% of all pedestrian accidents happen on that avenue, and it's one of the only key corridors that goes from all the way from north to south in the city and also intersects downtown. So a lot of my experience was built like advocating for that, along with Brianna actually, during the fall semester, because I was an intern for STVT in the fall and spring of last year. So yeah, for that, I found it at sometimes very frustrating, demoralizing, but overall really learned a lot about organizing, which was really helpful. I went to classrooms, canvassed, reached out to local stakeholders, was active in meetings, really just tried to dive totally into the process. And that was a really great learning experience for me, learning about advocacy and something I'd never really done before, but definitely was passionate about. So really valuable experience at STVT. Along with, I worked on this other project talking about minimum parking requirements, which are a zoning policy that basically requires buildings when they're being built to have a certain number of parking spaces, and usually these numbers are way too high, resulting in total overbuilding of infrastructure, and just encouraging people to park more and drive more. So getting rid of that really harmful policy that has led to a lot of destructions in our city and cities around the country and around the world. So a lot of my time at STVT was focused on advocacy, and then through this internship, I got to meet like a lot of local stakeholders. Like I got to meet people at the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, where I work now, and through those connections and networking, I was able to get this internship over the summer, which I've now continued doing now with the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, which was a very different outlook on transportation. I was focusing more on like technical groundwork layers of the transportation sector versus like an advocacy approach, which was different, but I think a good exposure to have. Yeah, so basically for that, I was doing a lot of just like really groundwork stuff, inventory of like deformities in all of the roads in Burlington and Winooski. So I went to most of the roads in Burlington. I was working with a couple of them there interns, so we split it up. But yeah, so we did that, which was long and hard, but definitely learned a lot. And also through this internship, I got to see a lot more of the county and get the opportunity to see so much of Chittenden County through just like driving around, looking at culvert inventories. Another thing I did, focusing on like stormwater management, which was interesting, and getting to see. I went to all different nooks and crannies of Chittenden County, which was really great to see all that. And then what I really have enjoyed doing this internship and really was super passionate about was I got to help with bike count programs, which are basically the bottom level of any data, like data you gather for any argument you're making about creating bike lanes and things like that. I got to actually take those data, do those counts, and learn about really the technical side of like bike infrastructure, which is super interesting. And also get to do a lot of work with geographic information systems, which has been super helpful. Yeah, and so from this experience, I think like through both these internships, I think it's been super valuable to hear about transportation from both an advocacy perspective and a more technical and data-driven perspective. The advocacy I got with STVT, the technical I got with Chittenden County Regional Planning, because I think it really provides insights into what both sides of like transportation are thinking. And I think whatever field or whatever field whomever decides to get into in transportation, I think it's really helpful to have both those perspectives. Yeah, that's it for my little spiel.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. So we have 2 comments right now. The first one, I don't know if you've already seen them, but Jack is wondering if you saw that the minimum parking changes passed a few weeks ago.
I did not see that, but that's great news. There's been just so much going on in the news cycle that I haven't caught that, but that's amazing. So happy. And I feel like the work that I've done and a lot of other people, including Jack, including a lot of people at Car Share Vermont, really helped push that through. So it's really inspiring to see that advocacy like make change.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
Nice.
Yeah. And the next is from Jacob Weinstein, who is also an intern at STVT. And he is wondering what your biggest takeaway was from each of the experiences.
Biggest takeaway was from STVT was definitely more related to the advocacy and like the bumps in the road that you're going to come into, which is super frustrating. But I think it's really great to like see how those processes work and really be in community meetings and be a part of your community in that way. So really the importance of being involved in my community was really a huge takeaway I had from STVT, and that I can, even though it might be frustrating, I can really make change, which is super great to hear. And from my internship that I'm currently doing, it's just like how important data is, and gathering data for these projects and having good data has been a huge focus of that, because data, if you have good data that people can't like poke holes in, that's a huge boost, and really solidifies any argument. Yeah. Definitely.
Could you talk a little bit about the structure of each internship, just for anyone watching that may be interested in going either way?
Sure. I would love to. So STVT, basically it's a group of, I think when I did it, like somewhere in the range of 6 to 8 interns working at STVT at the same time. I'm not sure if it's the same now, but I assume it's something similar. And for that, it's pretty unstructured in that the leaders, including Jack Hansen, Richard Watts of the program, really let you focus on what you're passionate about, and kind of just guide you into figuring out like what you can do regarding that. Like coming into that internship, I didn't know quite what I wanted to do, but Jack gave me a list of some things and some options of what to do, and I just took it and rolled with it and really made it my own. So I think if you're not sure what you want to do, but you have like a vague idea of what you're passionate about, I think STVT is a great way to really narrow that down and really gain experience into the world of transportation, which is definitely what has helped me get this internship and hopefully jobs beyond. And then with the CCRPC, what I'm doing right now, it's definitely more structured, different. I've only done it during COVID-19, so it looks very different not during it, but based on my experience, it's a lot of just like working in the field, really, at least for a lot of the summer, is just being outside. Which even though some of the work isn't the most exhilarating and thrilling, it's really great to be able to be in the, like driving around Chittenden County, just being in these beautiful spots, and even in Burlington, getting to see the city. So I think that was a real boost. But yeah, definitely more structured, focused on being outside a lot, and then also there's some computer time along with that.
And were you alone most of the time when you were outside doing field work?
No, so I was always with a partner. Obviously, masks, 6 feet apart, all that jazz. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you were always with at least one other person, which was nice to be able to, there were 4 interns for that, and it was nice to be able to bond with all of them.
Definitely.
My boss was also former UVM alum, so really cool to get those connections.
Yeah, totally. All right, so we have a few more questions that have piled in. So Jacob is also asking, let's see, can you give us a good story from your time going around Burlington with the CCRPC?
A good story. Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to, I don't know if I could think of a specific one off the top of my head, but just really being able to like talk to people and meet people around town, because they're always like, what are you doing? Because we have these big yellow vests on and we're just walking around looking pretty goofy.
Wait, I just have a picture. Jacob's sending your picture.
Yeah, a picture of me with a cow. Yeah, so just being able to like talk to people and talk to them about what we're doing, and just seeing different parts of Burlington. I think that was the best part of it.
Yeah,
for sure.
And then Jacob also asks, can you give any advice to young transportation hobbyists to get into the rat race?
Yeah, good advice for, that's a great question, Jacob. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, just really trying to network and get yourself out there. I think STVT is a great internship to start with if you're at UVM. Like, would really recommend that. Really built building blocks. Just trying to be involved in your local community in these issues and meeting people through that is also a great way. Like going to community meetings, talking to people about these issues, and yeah, I would say just talking to people about these things. The best way to get involved.
Okay. Will is wondering, I'm curious on your perspective on how you may get younger kids interested in sustainable transportation systems, if you have any experience. I think getting youth involved is important so they uphold these values you talk about in the future.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's super critical and super important. Getting youth involved. I think just letting them be active and seeing these things and showing them the problems, like straight up. And the reason I got involved is because I was so into biking and being outdoors, and that's like, and I noticed this problem when I came to a different city and really dove into it. So just like education and just like allowing people to see it and see that there's other ways of doing these things, that there's other ways of getting around besides driving everywhere. I think that's really important. So just facilitating conversations and just really pushing people to get outdoors and use alternative modes of transportation, I think is the best way.
Yeah, I think Abby, who was also, for people watching, another intern at STVT, had a similar perspective coming from London. She never really was in a car. And when she came here, she just was very passionate about getting other people out of their cars and making them realize that there's other ways of getting around. But Jack is asking, during your internship, although you were driving, were you at least carpooling?
Yeah. Well, I still don't own a car, so I was never driving alone. And the company, the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, has its own like hybrid electric vehicle. So if we were going anywhere far, we would use that. And we tried to avoid driving if we didn't have to. Like for most of the bike infrastructure stuff, I just biked and put up cameras and things like that. So yeah, always carpooling, Jack. Don't worry.
Nice. Okay, well, I think that was our last question. Thank you so much for being here and answering all these questions. It was very helpful, and I'm sure for a lot of people interested in joining STVT or maybe the CCRPC.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Thank you guys for having me.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say or plug before we log off?
No, just keep being involved in your local communities beyond transportation. There's so much advocacy happening in Burlington around Black Lives Matter beyond transportation. So really try to be involved in your local community, because I think that in a broader sense, like in our fighting our battle against climate change, for the environment, being involved in your local communities is a great way is the way, in my opinion, to fight that. So keep being involved, keep advocating for all these different issues. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Josh.
Yeah, thank you.